This week, adventures in real time, cliffhanger endings, and another 9-year wait. Over the closing credits of Before Sunset, this is episode 20 of Don't You Know Me By Now.
Did you show up in Vienna that December?
And it's obvious to him that time is a lie.
Memory's a wonderful thing if you don't have to deal with the past.
If we didn't suffer, we wouldn't learn a thing.
Do I look any different?
I might have given up on the whole idea of romantic love.
Maybe.
Don't you know me?
You are gonna miss that plane.
Don't you know me by now?
So do you think we did this whole thing just completely wrong and that there's just no way to get this movie without watching it front to back in one sitting? Do you think we kind of fucked it from the jump?
Not at all a loaded question, clearly. I mean, in a way, yes.
Right?
In a way, we did
Do you
absolutely
think Linklater
blow
would
it.
be mad at us? I feel like, yeah.
No. Richard Linklater? I don't think, no. I think he would be very, very chill.
Okay.
Probably in like a medically augmented kind of way. No, I think that you're completely right. The basic premise, our basic approach, the method here
Yeah.
is kind of at odds with the structure of this film. In a way, though, that is much more compatible with the first and third entries in this trilogy, because neither
Yes.
of them, most interestingly, are in real time. We don't even attempt anything in real time
We
beyond
have that
like the existence of long
walk.
takes.
Yeah. We have some long takes and long walks, but yes, you're right.
It's so interesting to think about real time as a phenomenon on screen,
Mm-hmm.
because the fundamental grammatical unit of cinematography is the cut. It is the
Yeah.
edit. It is the elision. That is what makes cinema cinema. And I find it so fascinating that we just keep returning to this idea of what if we made this movie in real time? What if we made this TV episode in real time?
Yeah.
It's much harder and oftentimes not as good.
Well, and what's terrible, even like we were talking about this earlier today, that episode of The Bear that was in real time. And we were
Yes.
fully 20 minutes in before we even realized it, because
That's-
that show is so chaotically cut and so claustrophobic anyway
Exactly,
that it
exactly.
just didn't communicate itself until it
doesn't
was too late to
lampshade
be
it.
impressed. Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure that's true. I do think that ultimately when you realize what it's doing, and when you realize that
Yeah.
the claustrophobia is just going to get worse and worse and worse as you move through. This is Review, the 7th episode of the first season of The Bear, which of course everybody is talking about this week because the 4th season has dropped all at
Exactly.
once.
I'm about 3 episodes in myself.
That is the episode that was nominated for the Emmy in the first season. That is the episode that gets Ayo Edebiri her Emmy for the season, is Review. It is, I mean, it's an outstanding
It
episode,
is.
as they
It
all
is.
are, I
They
think, in
are,
the first
yeah.
season. I think that first season still has yet to be bettered, though. Obviously, the jury's out on the fourth season because I haven't seen a second of it so far.
Sorry.
You sat down to watch the first episode. How's it working out for you?
I think I've watched the first 2 and a bit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
and I'm enjoying it. Yeah, I really am. I forgot just how beautiful the show is.
There's nothing like
it's-
it on TV.
There's nothing else like it. There were a couple of stills that they held for longer than they needed to because they were just like, doesn't this look good? Doesn't it look good? I'm like, it does. You did it. Yeah.
If you are listening to this
Yes,
episode and
heading
you would
on
like to
over
hear
to
more of our
patreon.com/next
com/nextword and signing up, because that gets you access to our weekly, very improvised, very unedited conversation that we host every Monday evening called Made It Through Monday. And I'm pretty sure that we're going to at least be talking about the first few episodes.
There will be some bear
Of
on
the
there
Bear
for sure.
this
Some bear
coming
content.
Monday.
Absolutely.
What other examples of real-time filmmaking stand out to you? Is there anything that like really works for you? Because I do think it is something that we keep returning to. It does seem to be a compelling technique that can
Yeah.
be used, but it's so often used poorly or incompletely, or the contrivance is such that you can't really overcome it.
Yeah, I think more of ones what we do almost like a Groundhog Day effect, like more of your
Oh, like a time loop.
the time
Yeah.
loop ones where you're in the same spot and you see the same things over and over again. But I feel like this is done less frequently when it's
It's
in
done
real
all
time.
the
Is it
time.
really?
Yeah, one of my favorite
I'm not
examples
having
is
things come straight
the
to mind.
Gary Cooper movie High Noon, which is just
Oh,
so
yeah.
rich and sharp
Holy
and
smokes.
edged and beautiful, and really again leverages that idea of claustrophobia, of like imminent doom,
Imminence,
that
yeah.
something bad is coming, which is really the technique that real time is used for more often than any other. I think it's sometimes used in
Yes.
comedy for sure. There are a couple of episodes of Frasier which kind
Frasier,
of conspicuously take place
definitely.
over
Yes.
an actual 22 minutes plus commercials.
Right.
But I think that usually we use it for tension, for drama, for conflict, and this sense that, yeah, something bad is coming. The year before Sunset, we had the Colin Farrell movie Phone Booth, which is very famously shot in real time. That is all just continuous action. Gravity, I've heard, though I still have yet to see that film here.
Oh my
a decade out, I
God.
still haven't seen it. Gravity is apparently in real time.
Holy smokes. Gravity's great.
Obviously,
it's just a lot. It's very stressful.
It's the underlying premise of shows like 24.
Right.
That just
24, I definitely remember, but I
lasted
never
for
really
so
watched
long.
it. Yeah.
And of course, the Bluey episode Handstand. When it's Bingo's birthday and Bingo just wants someone to watch her do a handstand.
That's right.
That is in real time. What's weird is that episode is in real time, and that is not the gimmick of the episode.
Yeah.
The gimmick of the episode is all of these overlaid, misaligned events that are happening independently in different parts of the frame. It's really
Such a
beautifully
smart
done.
show.
Such a smart show. Do you think that the real-time gimmick as applied to Before Sunset adds to the power? Do you think it creates a tension?
I do.
Yeah?
Yeah. It's one of the reasons why I brought it up right here in the beginning. It's like, did we do this wrong? Because I do think that kind of growing sense of desperation that they may never see each other again really culminates so beautifully. And then the way that time just kind of stops there in the apartment when she's singing and just swaying her hips.
Yeah.
Kind of incredible. Like, it's just so beautifully done.
By contrast, though, I do think that it robs us maybe of a little narrative momentum in the first act there or thereabouts.
I would agree.
think that
You have to sink into it.
Yeah, we're willing to stay superficial, which feels authentic. It feels as though, knowing that they only have an hour, they're not going to get immediately into the deepest parts of their conversation.
And
Despite
that it's been
what,
9 years since they saw each other.
Exactly. Yeah. Despite what Jesse says on the boat later. Right?
Right.
They don't cut straight to the most profound types of conversation that they can have. So I do think that it encourages us to stay a little superficial, stay a little light. But then you're right. That only contributes to the sense of almost emergency, right?
Yeah,
this sense
absolutely.
of ever increasing pressure, which you're so right, gets this cathartic release even before he acknowledges that he's going to miss the plane.
Yeah.
As soon as we get back into the apartment and we're enclosed and we're intimate and we're private,
Yeah.
I think that energy starts to shift. It's really beautiful, really phenomenal. But
so
you're absolutely
well
right.
done.
Hacking it up into 8 chunks or whatever
Yeah.
we did here, and then watching
little
those
rude.
individually does kind of sap it of some energy.
Yeah.
You're right. We're going to run into this again in our coverage of Before Midnight.
With the fight. Yeah.
Well, with the fight and with the long walk. We have to break the long walk into 2 parts
Oh,
too,
yeah.
because these scenes are just incredibly long and they really do happen in real time. It's interesting to think of all the ways in which Midnight is a hybridization of the first 2 films. But what are we even talking about? There isn't a third film. There won't be another film for 9 years.
Let's live in the present in 2004.
Though it is interesting looking at the coverage of this film as it comes out, that they're basically immediately talking about a third film, and they kind of keep coming back to it over the years. And it is just the passing of 9 years. It is just when we hit that symmetrical point that they feel compelled
It's so interesting
to
that's
do it.
9 and not 10. 10 seems so obvious.
It was never intended to be. When they sat down to write Sunset, they were never thinking, oh, this is going to be the middle chapter in an ongoing
That's
story.
true.
It's
It
only
was just, let's catch up.
when you see this film that you realize, oh no, we haven't finished this. We'll talk about Midnight when we get there. I did want to talk a little about the release of this movie. The premiere took place at the Berlin International Film Festival on February 10th, 2004, but it was released theatrically in the US on July 2nd, 2004, which means that we're like a week away from this film's 21st anniversary.
Wow. Cool.
Which feels both very recent and very, very long ago.
Yeah.
Over that July 4th weekend, it made $311,000 in only 20 theaters, which is a very impressive
Wow,
per
that's a
screen
nice showing.
average of $15,500.
Cool.
Yeah, it's pretty solid. It then just expands to more and more theaters over the course of the next month, peaking at 204 theaters the weekend of August 1st, and it ultimately stays in US theaters for 17 weeks.
That's a long time.
What's fascinating is that domestically, it cost and makes almost exactly the same amount of money as Before Sunrise. It costs $2.7 million versus Sunrise's $2.5 million, and both films make $5.5 million domestically. the big difference and the thing which guarantees a third movie in the run is that Sunrise only makes 6 million worldwide. It hardly does any business outside of the US at all because they didn't have international distribution when they launched the movie in the first place.
Sure.
They do have international distribution for Sunset, so it makes $15 million
Nice.
worldwide and is actually a really good investment for everyone
That's
involved.
wonderful.
The other thing
Good
that I
news.
wanted to observe here is that this movie is nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay at the 77th Academy Awards, at that year's Independent Spirit Awards, and at the WGA Awards, and it loses all three to the same film. Can you tell me which film swept the board in adapted screenplay in films of 2004 award ceremonies in 2005?
Oh man, 2004 and 5.
It is a film that we have been talking about this week, which isn't unusual because it is a film that we talk about most weeks. It is a film that we will mention in our household all the time.
So we've seen it?
Oh, we have seen it. We have seen it. It's an adaptation of a novel. It has a very frequent line that we cite from Mr. Paul Giamatti.
Oh, it's Sideways?
It's
No
Sideways.
way. That's okay. I get it.
I would be mad about
Yeah.
this movie missing out on all of that
There was
statuary.
some really
but Sideways is real
Sideways
good.
is great. There was some good stuff happening around this time. I was just thinking too, because watching the trailer, which we'll get to here in a bit, and hearing that music over it, there was some really interesting music happening. There was
Yeah.
some really interesting independent filmmaking happening. This was just kind of a cool time.
Here's my question to you that I'm asking on the podcast for accountability. Should we, maybe, can we watch Sideways as the bonus episode?
Oh,
It is not incompatible with what Linklater is doing here. And it is a really great film.
Whoa. We maybe make a list, let people
Maybe
vote.
put a poll
Yeah,
up
put
on
a
the
poll
Patreon
up on
page.
the Patreon
At the
page. I
aforementioned
think so.
Patreon page,
Yes.
patreon.com/nextword, where you can come and, I guess, choose whether we watch that or
Past
Li-
Lives
Oh, I
is
didn't
the other
really
one. I
wanna talk about Past
know.
Lives.
I know.
Look, we've got
Very different
way
vibes.
too many bonus episode ideas that we can fit into the span of this podcast. So it seems like maybe this podcast might just continue on past the end of the Linklater trilogy, but we'll see.
Mhm.
We should talk a little about the trailer. Should we just jump in and watch it live, as it were?
Yeah, sure. Let's go for it.
So we've set up the HD remaster version of the trailer on some YouTube channel called Movie Predictor, I guess.
Sure.
The link is in the show notes, you guys. You can go and find that link right now, and you can watch along with us as we enjoy the finest theatrical editing of 2004, I guess. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
3, 2, 1, play. So this is incredibly audacious. Using the footage from the first film as an intro to the premise of the second film is really strong, I think.
Can you imagine being in a theater to go watch something else, not knowing anything about this trailer dropping, and seeing those two again? Can you imagine the collective gasps from the 6 people who know?
I honestly wonder if I would have just thought, oh, they're just re-releasing before
Either
Sunrise.
way, I
They're
would have been
just
like,
putting it back
what's
in.
happening? What's happening?
You're right.
I'm in.
Yeah, we're not. But to montage through the events of Before Sunrise, because
Yeah.
it was 9 years ago, again, this movie had a huge life on video. But
yeah.
repositioning it as, and then establishing this new visual language as we arrive, a new visual language that is not crucially used in the film, but is still distinct from what
splitting
happened
up the
before.
screens like they do. Yeah,
It's really cool, I think.
it is. It's beautiful.
Kind
yeah.
of showing, the fractured approach to who we are and who we were and where we are. And we're picking the most adorable parts, obviously, of
We are, yeah.
the
And of
entire
course, we got voiceover guy who was such a part of, I don't know, my youth, I guess.
of movie
This
culture.
he was the movie culture
For
voiceover
years
guy.
and years
Yeah.
and years. And now they just, we don't do that
We just
anymore.
don't do that anymore. Yeah, it seems so antiquated now.
There's a nice use of space here, too, I guess.
There is, yeah. It's really beautifully done.
It
And
is
I
really
love this
cute.
music over it. As I said, this is Oceans.
Yes, I've got my notes on this. Let me find them. In fact,
Sure.
because this is Edge of the Ocean by the
Edge of the
by the
Ocean.
trip hop band Ivy
That's
from
it.
the year 2000. Ivy is a band formed in 1991 by Andy Chase and Adam Schlesinger, who would later go on to found the band Fountains of Wayne.
Oh my
and
God,
who
that's
was
so
an
weird.
incredibly prolific writer and producer, worked across genres, had Fountains of Wayne and Ivy going at the same time rather
Wow.
brilliantly.
That's
And
wild.
unfortunately, he was taken from us far too young in the
COVID, I
early
remember.
days of the
Yeah.
COVID pandemic. Schlesinger and Chase also co-wrote the title track of the Tom Hanks hit, That Thing You Do.
Whoa.
That
Genius.
is a really perfectly written song.
It's true. That's the whole
It's
point of it.
fantastic.
Wow, that's so funny.
Ivy recorded 6 albums, all with French singer Dominique Durand, who absolutely looks like that 90s girl that you're picturing.
Yes.
She was also married to Adam Chase through that entire period and still is today. So they record 6 albums between 1995 and 2011. And you're right, their music is everywhere at this point in
I remember
history.
it being in Grey's for sure. That whole
Yes.
opening season Grey's soundtrack was legit.
It is
so much
in
good stuff.
There's Something About Mary, Me, Myself, and Irene, Insomnia, Alias, and Roswell, and One Tree Hill. And you're right, this song, Edge of the Ocean, was used in Veronica Mars, in Music and Lyrics in 2007, and the Grey's Anatomy episode Shake Your Groove Thing, which is the 5th episode of season 1. It's the one with Meredith's first ever heart surgery. So now I guess I need to buy you all of these albums. Or at least add them to your ambient dream pop trip hop playlist
Definitely.
that you've been leaning on so much this summertime.
Kind of been into lately. Yeah, absolutely.
It's good vibes. What do you think of this song?
Oh, I love that song.
Does it communicate, before sunsetness to you?
No.
No, me
Not
neither.
at all. No,
I
love
really
this
like
song,
it.
and I love it as like a time capsule for 2004. But no, it doesn't have anything to do with Before Sunset.
And it doesn't have the same vibe because you're right. It is so, it is recorded in 2000, but it is so early 2000s.
Yeah,
And this film, as we've observed before, it just feels a little weirdly timeless.
It's
We're not
timeless.
really anchoring
Yeah.
anything specifically in this time and place.
yeah.
It is a better song than the other song that we have to discuss, since we're ostensibly in this episode of Don't You Know Me By Now watching the closing credits of Before Sunset. We really need to talk about, the Julie Delpy song. By
Yeah.
far the weakest of the 3, I think, that she prepared for this film, or excuse me, definitely defiantly did not prepare for this movie, already absolutely had written and recorded before anyone had considered a sequel to Before Sunrise. This is the song Je t'aime tant, which is just, I love you so much.
Yeah.
And it's interesting.
It's okay. Yeah.
It's interesting.
I think this, and I said this before, I think on the last episode that we did, when she did her Waltz for a Night on the album, are just like kind of weirdly overproduced for me. I want them to be stripped back a little bit.
It is
But-
very overproduced.
Yeah. But I like her. Like, I like her little, I don't know, breathy,
Yeah.
up on the mic thing that she's doing. I think it's cute.
She's certainly not a
I
bad
think
performer.
if she sang this song in a French cafe where I was having an espresso, I'd be in love with her.
With just an acoustic guitar, or perhaps, an interesting looking guy wearing a fedora with a stand-up bass.
Yes,
Like
100%.
you need
Yeah.
a vibe here. And that I think is the problem, is that the version that's produced on the soundtrack for this movie,
Yeah.
wrong choice,
Some
vibe
kind of
wise.
punky
Just
something
like a
happening. I don't
yeah,
know,
like
what is that?
actual like Appalachian banjo
Yes.
playing alongside it, which
What
is
are
a
you doing?
weird choice. It's also true, I think, that the production does not mirror the lyrical content
No.
of the song when it's translated, because it is so. She's hurting, right? This is a song of kind of
See, I don't speak the French,
acknowledging
so I don't
pain
know.
and grieving and overcoming. It's making the choice to not be in relationships with bad men anymore, like
Oh,
explicitly.
good choice.
That's what it is. The end of the song is, I please you, you please me. We are the lovers of agony. The night kills us. The boredom, the love always follows us. Love always escapes us. Love always destroys us. Like the rain and forgetfulness cries in the night. I love you a lot. I love you a lot. Nevertheless. Which is just kind
That's
of great.
pretty good and pretty French. Yeah.
Pretty strong, right?
Yeah,
But there's
that's
nothing
good.
in the production, unfortunately, that
No.
really communicates that.
Yeah. I would never have guessed.
Yeah. Yeah. It does feel like so superficial.
So
compared
light.
to
Yeah. So
even
funny.
the opening song that we get at the beginning of the movie. So that, I think, is everything that we have to say on the subject of Before Sunset. How long will it be before you watch this movie again?
I don't think long. Probably a year? I don't know. I might watch it start to finish again before we dive into Midnight.
That's a pretty good place to be,
Yeah.
honestly.
And I might watch Midnight start to finish before we break it up. I think that was a mistake with this one, that I really only watched it in pieces, because I was like, well, I've seen it 12 times. But I
Yeah.
should have watched the whole thing first and tried to remember that feeling rather than splitting it up the way that we did.
Midnight, I think, I have seen far fewer times
Yes,
than
same.
the
It's a much
others.
harder watch. It's not, you don't sink into it
Intentionally
with such
so.
a intentionally
Yeah.
so. Yeah.
I don't think it's a much worse film, but you're right. It is a harder watch.
Much.
It is, the actualization of all of this romantic potential in a world that doesn't really afford space
Yeah.
for, and all of the things that we believe are quirky and charming and adorable about our partners. become exposed as sharp edges and raw nerves over the course of, 9 years together, I guess, by the time that we pick up. But I also think it's secretly the most beautiful of the three films. I think it has the best soundtrack of the three films. I think that they are surrounded for the first time by excellent supporting actors.
Other cast, which is great.
Who are just, across the board, just phenomenal. We're going to have so much to talk about when we get into Midnight. It is, just so much of a richer text. But you're absolutely right. I think that if Sunrise starts as this shaggy, kind of unformed, kind of ill-disciplined, and there's, wherein its charm chiefly lies, right? That's what is good about it. To come into Sunset and to find this thing that feels so much the same, feels so familiar, and yet is, when you look at it, so engineered and so tooled and so precise. It is so focused. It was, though it was shot over a similar span of time, so much harder to shoot. It was, though it was written in a very similar way, so much harder to write. And it was, though it's performed in a very similar kind of tone, so much harder to perform. I don't think that this film gets the technical respect that it deserves, which is, as we've observed before, kind of a Linklater thing. He gets neither the credit nor the blame for his films. He just kind of coasts through on like an average B grade, like a decent solid passing grade.
Yeah.
He doesn't seem to get touched by either the big hits in his filmography or the real stumbles in his filmography, which is maybe just the best way to be, right? It's just every few years you're going to get $5 or $10 or $15 million to go make something weird and ambitious, but also broadly commercial, I think is not a bad way to have a career, for sure. We'll dip into the careers of Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy when we come back with the beginning of Midnight, which I should observe is going to be a little unusual because we don't have opening credits, really, in Midnight. We're going to be watching the first 6 minutes and 3 seconds of Before Midnight for our next episode. Everything in the airport until we get into the car and literally leave frame at the end of that sequence. It's a little disjointed. It's going to make a lot more sense when we get the second reading of Midnight. Let me call up, in fact, our entire production schedule. As soft as this thing is, it will at least remind me how many episodes we're going to be covering. Is there any part in particular of Midnight that you're looking forward to more than any other?
The dinner party.
That's my favorite too. That is going to be episode 4.
Yeah.
We're going to do 5. We're going to do 10. We're going to do 11 episodes in total. So 11 more episodes of Don't You Know Me By Now, and then Don't You Know Me By Now might just transform into something else, or may fall fallow and we'll just start something very similar. We'll see how it all works out. Guys, thank you so much for listening. I know this is a short one, but really just the closing credits. What did you expect? It's more of a skip week than anything else. But yes, the first 6 minutes and 3 seconds of Before Midnight when we return. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for your support. Head on over to patreon.com/nextword, where you can cast your vote on our upcoming bonus episode, or, you can sign up over there and send us messages directly to suggest other films that we haven't even considered. Because despite what it may seem, we don't have an entirely encyclopedic knowledge of all cinema. Well, you do. I don't. I rely on Wikipedia. You play nice when we're on the podcast, but I know what you're really like. That, I think, is going to do it for this episode. Elizabeth, an absolute pleasure.
Always.
Don't You Know Me By Now is a Next Word production. You can support the show, join our community of listeners, and get access to bonus episodes and lots more by visiting patreon.com/nextword. You can find show notes and other episodes at knowmepod.com. That's knowpod.com. And you can reach us at knowmepod on Instagram, Blue Sky, and YouTube. Thanks for listening.